Welcome back, humor consumers, to the Life Happens, Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm comedian Tracy DeGraff.
And I'm Cathrine.
My bestie.
Yes. We're here for each other, aren't we?
Thank God. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cathrine. And God.
Yes.
You hear that noise?
I do.
Oh, that's the heater. It's cold. It's been cold. It's going to get warm, though.
Yeah.
Should we turn that off?
No.
All right.
Unless
All right.
you start to
Get hot. That's good. That could happen. All right. Sorry for that distraction. We're here. We're here in the pod lab, and we are excited to be recording. We're going to get to that in just a minute. And the first thing that we wanted to do today is to express our appreciation for our listeners.
Yes. Woo!
It's amazing to me.
It is to me, too.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is getting feedback.
Yes, we got feedback, face-to-face feedback.
Yes.
Cathrine and I attend the same church in our little town. And we
No
went...
surprise there.
Yeah, right. And it's right down the street. We could walk there.
We are Siamese, if you please.
Stop. Oh, if you're just tuning in, we're best friends and we're joined at the hip. And sometimes we think we're crazy.
Or others think we're crazy.
Yeah, and then we don't care because we're like, that's us.
Yeah.
Whatever. Everybody wants to be us. Not really.
Except our husbands.
Yeah, right.
They just support.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we go to the same church, and we attended a ladies' event. What was it, last Saturday?
Last week, yeah.
Last Saturday. We attended the event, and we were there as attendees. We didn't have anything to do with organizing the event or speaking at the event or anything like that. And I walked up to a table full of our peeps, you know, and I started talking to them just like, hi, how's it going, whatever. And they were all chitter-chatter about various episodes that they'd listened to. And to the point where I had to go, oh my gosh, what did we say during that episode?
Yeah.
Because we record them ahead of time.
Advance, yeah.
And then we load them up into the little Podbean thing, and then they get spread out.
Dropped,
that's the word. Yeah, get me official. They drop every Wednesday at noon. So if you're a new listener, welcome to the party. We're happy to have you. And we had no idea that all these ladies were listening.
No, we didn't.
And enjoying it.
Yeah, that was very encouraging.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of our friends, Gail, she says, I can't wait. I've listened to them all. And now I have to wait week to week, you know, because they drop one at a time.
Yeah.
Because we're doing our best, friends, to figure this out. And we put a lot of time and effort into it. It might not sound like it.
Right.
But we do.
Right.
We try.
Right. And we're growing with this.
We hope, yeah.
Well, we are.
Yes, we are.
We're definitely. I mean,
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we are. So, so stay tuned now and in the future, because we're just going to keep growing.
Yeah, and we try every episode to have a call to action. And so we want you to listen all the way to the end of this episode. Today's episode, by the way, is on the topic of phobias. Yeah. And Cathrine and I are going to share our phobias, which we have actually had panic attacks with them. And so we have them. So we're going to share those, but we're also going to share some weird ones. But listen all the way to the end, because we have a favor to ask you.
Yeah. And
we are just going to come out and ask. Yeah.
No fear there.
No. And we're going to expect a yes. So just saying.
All right.
All right. Well, let's jump into the topic of phobias and some common phobias. What do you think? Give us 5 common phobias, Cathrine, and then I'll share 5 common phobias as well.
All right. So some common phobias are flying, heights, spiders, confined spaces, and blood.
Oh. Blood meaning you don't want to see it? You don't want to bleed?
Well, the category includes needles, people who are afraid of needles, and injuries, and certain medical procedures or medical procedures. So that's what that includes.
Okay. And, well, let's talk about your phobia on flying.
All right. Do we want to mention our sponsors?
Yes, I forgot.
Okay.
I'm sorry, sponsors. Go ahead.
Our sponsors are
Muffin and Pooh. Our husbands.
Yeah. Ron and Kenny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Right.
for hanging in there with us.
And ministry supporters.
Yes, because we have had a long list of supporters who have helped us to come this far in terms of getting all this equipment that we needed to produce the podcast. And on the road, we're going to ask our listeners to be supportive of us as well if you're so led to support us financially. We're not there yet, and we know that we can get on some of these programs where you can give, and we're going to do that. But we're just wanting to get kind of our feet under us, I guess, first to make sure that we know what we're doing and we're on a regular schedule. So that'll be coming soon. So listen up.
Yes, please do.
All right. So tell them about your flying situation.
Yeah. I have a real phobia of flying. And we were talking about where do phobias come from, which we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But I didn't have this phobia when I was younger. I grew up flying overseas and even a couple domestic things. Mm-hmm. And I would say, though, that there was a lot of excitement prior to getting on that plane, butterflies, excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, later in life, and it actually was after 9/11, but I can't say that I thought about what happened on 9/11 as part of what I was afraid of.
Right.
But it was crippling. I mean, to the point of couldn't even think about it without having that panic inside.
It was a physical response.
Which is what a phobia does produce, is a physical
the
anxiety panic attack.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was my experience.
So wait, go back, because I can't recall what you had said earlier to me, and then I don't know that you just mentioned it now, but how old were you? Do you recall how old you were when you first got on an airplane? Because Catherine's family is from England, so that's why she had frequent trips to and from, England to America.
Well, maybe this is it. I just now
here we go.
Of this. When I was a baby, they put me in a box and put me on the floor in front of the seat.
Wow.
And of course, I don't remember that, but
maybe you do.
Maybe I do.
It's baked in the cake.
Wow. We're uncovering some
Therapy.
stuff here. Yeah, so I was in a little box on the floor the very first time that my parents flew back to England.
Okay, to visit your mom's family and show off the baby and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Of course. And then as you were younger, and you, of course, recall, because we read Catherine's diary earlier from when she was in junior high. Oh, my gosh, that's funny.
Prior to that, actually.
Yeah, we should do an episode on that, just on your diary.
Oh, just on mine.
Yeah, well, I have one, but I don't know where it is. We can make it up.
Let's excavate it. Let's find it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and then the next time that I went, I believe I was 7,
okay.
I think.
So that's pretty young and impressionable.
Oh, and I remember that. I can remember that.
And it was good? Scary? Both?
No, it was all good.
Exciting?
Yeah, exciting.
Couldn't wait to see family.
Mm-hmm. But, I think I know what you're getting at.
Mm-hmm.
But I would watch my mom at takeoff.
Yeah.
And she would grip the arms of the chair, on the plane.
Yeah.
And she just would be so dramatic and clutch the arms, like I said. And she looked like she was gonna die.
Yeah.
And she was scared it looked like we were going down. And I guess that perhaps I internalized that. But it didn't surface itself, manifest into this fear until I got older.
Right. But when you're 7 years old, you're certainly old enough to recognize that something like that is going on. Mm-hmm. And maybe you didn't understand it right then. Like, why would she be doing that? But there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess so. I mean, I can remember definitely sensing her fear, but she would preach to us. She would not lecture, but she would say, "Oh, don't worry," and she would give all the stats, and she'd say things, but I knew better. I knew she was just saying that to us to get us on that plane. And
plus we talked about in our listening episode, which if you haven't heard that, listen to it. It's in there somewhere on listening. We talked about how nonverbal communication overrides your words. So even as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, whatever, if your mom was saying, "Oh, it's all good," but she's gripping with a death grip.
Yeah.
her nonverbals override
Exactly.
the verbals.
Exactly.
So then it was obviously many years from then until 2003.
It was 2003 when, before even leaving, I realized that I was scared to death.
So you were in Chicago and you were leaving to go to a vacation or something?
Going to England.
England. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And even before getting to the airport, even just thinking of going, I was getting anxiety. I was having nightmares. And so I did call the doctor and I said, I have this thing, and he had prescribed medicine. Well, looking back, I thought that I had an adverse effect to the medicine.
Okay.
But looking back, I realized it wasn't a high enough dose for an 8-hour flight.
I see.
Nor for the anxiety level that I had. So I thought that I was having an adverse, when in reality, I think that I just didn't have enough medicine. So, oh gosh, it was awful. It was so bad.
So you got on the plane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did you get on and then take the medicine? Or did you take the medicine and then get on?
I did it as prescribed, as the doctor told me to, which was before getting on.
Okay.
So, I don't even remember it making a dent.
Okay.
And how I felt.
So you still felt the anxiety as you boarded the plane, and then you had an 8.5-hour flight or whatever.
Yeah.
How did you do on that flight?
You should ask my family that, because I
what would
barely
they say?
remember. Well, Kenny,
yeah,
he talks about how. So our youngest one, Ellis, she was about 2 at the time.
Gosh, you had 3 kids with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's enough to invoke anxiety.
I know. And she was in a car seat, and
what?
Kenny had all the responsibility. I was good for nothing. I was a wet noodle. Not because of medicine either, but because I was
You're shaking in fear,
absolutely having a panic attack for 8 hours.
Wow.
And so at some point, because he was holding Ellis, even though there was a car seat, but he was handling her somehow. He said, "Could you give me a hand? I have to go to the bathroom." And I said, "No."
You can't.
I said,
you can't go to the bathroom.
I went, "No." And I thought, well, he's going to have to figure it out.
And did he? So what did you do?
I just stayed in my slump state in the chair. I don't know what he did. I don't know what he did.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
I'm just going to add, on the way back,
Yeah.
even worse. So what I just described to you, multiply that maybe times 10.
Okay.
Because, so we're on board.
Yeah.
And
wait. This is on the way back?
This is on the way home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're on board. You've got your medicine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess. But it didn't, like I said, didn't feel like it. The pilot comes on. He starts speaking French. And I thought, oh my God, we're on the wrong flight. We're on the wrong flight. And I was in the middle row, because it's a big, you know, 747 or something just like that. And so I'm in the middle, but I'm on the end of the middle. And in the row next to me, which are the 3 or 4 window seats, there is a person, like a matriarch of a religious group.
Okay.
And I think she had the whole like habit thing on and everything. So anyway, there was a big group from France on the plane that I started to realize. And a lot of people were real concerned about this woman next to me.
Okay.
And we happened to, in the flight, hit severe turbulence.
No.
I describe it as severe turbulence. I mean, I grabbed the steward's arm at one point. And, you know, because he said to me about, I think one of the kids was laying on my lap at that point. And he says to me, in what I perceived as a panic voice, he says, "Is she strapped?" Meaning, is she belted in?
I know what that means.
And I was like, no. And I grabbed his arm. Like, what's happening? And anyway, all these people that were within this group were going over to this woman next to me, this like matriarch, it seemed like. And she's back and forth, and she's all paranoid, and she's praying. And they're all consoling her. And these people, like, their rear ends were in my face because they're bending over and talking to her and consoling her. And it just was traumatic to me.
And did you think, or do you think now that woman was afraid to fly?
Yes.
Yes.
There's two of us next to each other.
Great. Lord help.
Yeah. So that's experience. Didn't make things pleasant, and it didn't help the situation. My medicine wasn't strong enough.
Right.
You know. So.
Right. And my experience has been with you, flying with you now, because Catherine and I occasionally, pre-COVID, we did fly for ministry purposes, and she does great. I have to give you credit that, you know, you do it anyway. Like, you don't let it stop you. And I really give you a lot of credit for that. Aww. You definitely get the medicine, whatever it is, Xanax or whatever it is, and you take it as prescribed, which she's very diligent about not taking too much and not trying to just be a big girl and do it on your own or whatever.
No.
Yeah, no.
Well, I wouldn't be able to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one time, I do remember the time we flew to Texas with me and you and Lisa. Yeah, so Catherine and Lisa were supposed to be my people. They were supposed to be my assistants.
Support.
Yeah, my support.
Yeah, assistants, yes, right.
Right, and we were going to pretend like one was my agent and one was my manager.
Right,
Remember, we were like, oh yeah, she's a big shot. She's got people. And we're in Chicago, and we're from here. You know, this is like where we're from. And I was like, okay, we've got to go or whatever.
Yeah.
And Lisa wasn't paying attention to the time. And you had taken, I don't know if I can't remember now if we were in Texas or if we were in Chicago, but whatever it was, I remember I had to do all the stuff. I was like,
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Well, but think of it this way. Look what I did to Kenny. I was like, I can't help you.
Yeah, yeah, but so we get on the plane, and whether we were going from Chicago to Dallas or vice versa, we get on the plane, and it's time to buckle up. Catherine can't put her buckle together. She couldn't do it.
I forgot about
Remember?
that.
Like, she would grab both ends, and she was like flopping around like a fish out of water, and I'm like, I got this. I buckled you in like you were 4.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
No problem.
Right.
I got
made
you.
me feel more secure.
Mama.
Mama.
Oh, so I'm sure there are people listening who either do have a fear of flying or know someone who does have a fear of flying. And we're going to get into what to do about it later in the podcast. So we'll kind of save that for then. But did you have anything else that you wanted to add about flying?
Well, just about what you said. You just mentioned that you're sure that somebody either knows somebody or maybe has a fear of flying. But from what I read when we were, getting ready for this podcast, most people will experience some type of phobia at some point.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I read. Most people, not to the point where they need the therapy or medication, but most people will experience one way or another. That's what I read.
Well, we learned about there are so many phobias. They all have a different name.
Yeah. And most of them are medically recognized. I found a couple that I was like, oh, wow. And then I looked into it further. And while it had its own name, it wasn't recognized in the medical world, even though people really do have it. Yeah. So I thought, well, I guess I won't use that one.
Yeah. And, one thing to just share, like before every podcast, Catherine and I always do a little sound test in prayer. So
I'm glad you're mentioning
this. So we pray together, and then we save those little sound bites, I don't know, for some later use or whatever. But in the prayer, it was my turn to pray, and I prayed that anybody who, if someone feels a fear, whether or not it's a rational fear, it is fear.
Right.
And they feel it.
Right.
It is fear to them. So we need to be sensitive to that, I guess.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're saying that, because I wanted to point out that if we do laugh about a certain phobia, I can laugh at my own phobia. Yeah. I can, but we are sensitive to
for sure
to other people's fears. So if we do happen to laugh at a couple of them, it's not that we think it's ridiculous.
Not
it's
at
just
all.
that Well, actually,
funny.
they use that in some therapies.
Laughing at it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like seeing the humor in it.
Yeah. Well, because we know that the definition of comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah.
And we're talking about our own experiences, and I'm going to share mine in just a second, but we're able to laugh about it now. In the moment, when you were losing it, there was no laughing necessarily. There was, let's bring help, bring support, let's get through this, whatever. But now picturing Kenny and you juggling 3 kids and you and you going, you're on your own, pal.
Yeah, I know. Well, and even I can laugh at that you had to buckle me in because it was good for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
No.
Well,
the fear is real.
It is real. It is real. It is real. Anyway.
To us.
Yes. And I will share with the audience my fear is claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Which is very common.
It is.
And people have a fear of tight spaces or being unable to breathe or whatever. And in our research, we did learn that oftentimes these fears have an origin. So they're based in some experience that one had at a particular point in time. Could be in your youth, could have been when you were in the box, as a baby on the plane.
Oh,
not when my thing started.
Yeah.
We really aren't the same person.
Which would explain if you're put in a box, that's confined.
It would, but that was your story, not mine. But anyway, these experiences, we all have experiences, and some way, somehow, there's some kind of negative thing that happens, and then it could lay dormant forever and ever and ever, and then boom, there's a trigger.
Yeah, it can manifest itself.
So it sounds like for you with flying, the trigger was 9/11 happened, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. For mine, claustrophobia, I don't recall ever having a triggering kind of or an origin, like a negative experience of origin. I don't recall anything as a kid. But I grew up in the 70s when everybody was in the wide open spaces. You were outside all the time.
Yeah.
So I was never in a confined space. And when I went to college was my first experience with the elevator. I mean, I had been on elevators before.
Yeah.
But not in a college dorm. And I lived on the 10th floor my freshman year. And I couldn't do it. I
did not know that.
Well, with college students, they're shoving as many people on there as possible. And they're abusing things. And things can get broken and stuff like that. So I could do it if I was the only one there. Like, let's say I was coming back to my dorm in between classes and there was nobody else really around. But if it was a real busy time, I mean, there were often times when groups of students would have to wait. One group goes up, then the next group shoves in, and they just keep on coming and coming. And if you're like the first one in, and then
and you keep getting pushed back.
Yeah. And who wants to be the person who says, no more?
Right.
There's 2 of us in here,
I'm
and
about to freak out.
One too many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what those people who are train pushers, or actually not the train pushers, but the people who, in our episode about weird jobs. Yeah. And one of the weird jobs is called train pushers, and they push people. It's mostly in Japan, and they pack them in.
Yeah.
These trains. I wonder how they feel about claustrophobia.
I don't even like thinking about that, but thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate it. Let's do exposure therapy right here.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, so in my college years, I lived on the 10th floor, and then I also lived on the 14th floor. So there was no avoiding the fact that there was an elevator in the situation, but I would take the stairs.
I was going to ask you, did you take the stairs?
I did, unless I was desperate. Yes. So that was my first clue that I don't like being on elevators with a whole bunch of people. And then I was never stuck on an elevator, but that was just in my mind. Well, I survived through college, and all these years, I mean, it's been 36 years or whatever since college. And now I had my first panic attack of my life ever. How many years ago was it? Because you were with me.
Yeah, it was maybe 4.
4?
No.
Okay, 4 years ago?
4 or 5.
Okay, so Cathrine and I were on a trip with our church peeps. And it was, how many ladies were with us?
There had to be at least 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah,
okay, so, and we were all traveling together in the same SUV which was like a 7-passenger SUV, but the very third seat, the back seat, was a little tight. And there was
a lot tight.
It was a lot tight. Yes. I was trying to
give yourself.
I was trying to help myself, but yes, it was a lot tight. It was very tight.
Yeah.
And it happened to be Christmas time, and we stopped at a mall. And so we all got out and we all went in, and we were on our way back from Wisconsin Dells to Chicago area. We went in the mall, we bought a bunch of stuff, and then there was really nowhere to put it. The trunk was full. Or I guess they call it the back
hatch.
I don't know what they call it, but it was the back area was full. And so I was sitting in that third seat, and all around me were all these gifts. I looked like E.T. in the closet.
I was going to say that. Yeah, you did.
There was not an inch of space that wasn't being used all around me.
True.
And at the time, I was saying, because everybody was like trying to be very gracious and like, "Are you okay back there?" Because our leader, Linda, she was saying, "I'll sit in the back." And
she did on the way there, and she knew that spot's uncomfortable and you miss out in conversation.
Yeah.
So she did have that position, but I think her knees were bothering her and maybe she mentioned something. But you volunteered to go in the back.
I did.
You did.
And I thought I was going to be okay.
Yeah, not knowing you were going to have that sensation. But yeah.
So then we get packed
road.
in, we get on the highway. So now we're on the interstate. And conversations are going and everything is happy-go-lucky. And I'm just sitting back there feeling my chest, feeling my heart, feeling like an elephant sitting on me. And I'm feeling like I can't breathe. And Cathrine is up in the front somewhere. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but I think it was like, "You guys."
Yeah, that's what you said. You went, guys. And I thought immediately, what's wrong with her? It's not like you to just blurt that out, especially when a bunch of gals are talking.
Yeah. And interrupt them and be like, "Oh, I need something." And I was trying to be calm. I really was trying to suppress the panic because I had to get out of that space.
Yeah.
And Becky, who was driving, she wasn't able to pull over.
Not right away.
Right away. No. And then she got off somewhere and we got into a parking lot. And then it took a minute for the doors to open and everybody else had to get out. And then they had to basically extract me with the jaws of life, like come and get me. And I had to take a minute, to compose myself. And I was so embarrassed, that.
Were you?
Well,
Aww.
I was embarrassed because I'm grown and I had no control over that. That was the first time I had ever had that experience of a full-blown panic attack for any reason. I know that people have panic attacks for many, many different reasons.
Yeah.
And they are very real. And so then I had to sit in the front. I couldn't sit in the back, and our dear friend Linda she climbed right back there, and she was E.T. in the closet, and she was fine with it.
Yeah.
I was like, "God bless you, girl," because I was ready to call my husband and say, like, "You gotta come to Wisconsin, pick me up."
Yeah. Well, that's how fear is. There was a time coming back from Jamaica where we had to do we landed, what's it called? Connecting flight.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm not getting back on. I am not getting back on. I'm getting a bus. Give me the credit card."
A bus.
I am taking a bus from the East Coast back to Chicago.
You're done.
I'm not getting on.
Yeah, and that's really the reason that we wanted to do this podcast is because these phobias can lead to...
They're debilitating.
Yes. And I was going to share this too about... So I survived that initial episode, obviously, and then I thought, well, it's not a big deal. How many times am I going to be sitting in the third row of a SUV packed with women and Christmas gifts? Not that often, right? But then I had a second panic attack. And it was in my son's car, a little Mustang that I don't know how he crawled in and out of that thing. And I had to use his car because my car was in the shop and I had to go to physical therapy. And I was able to get there. But when I came back, I knew it was tight and I had felt it was tight, but I had that same sensation of I can't breathe and I can't do it, and I was able to get through it. But those two things really affected me. So then I had to go and fly. You and I flew to Florida, And I asked my doctor for some Xanax because I told her I had these 2 panic attacks, and now I'm afraid that I'm going to get on the flight and feel that way. I just need a backup.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to use it.
Right.
Because it turns out that I didn't feel that way.
No, well, we also had the very front row where there's space. Didn't we have
Yes.
the very... So that you weren't really confined. You
Right.
didn't have somebody in front of you.
Right.
Actually, we had a lot of leg room because we have issues. That's why we got
Yes.
the front row.
It's all I'm saying is I'm weak. I'm weak.
We're all weak, aren't we?
Yeah.
I feel like you had one other time that you had a claustrophobic episode. Not as major as the one in the van with, or whatever it was, SUV. With the gals. I feel like there was one other one, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is like I kind of thought that was a one-time thing when you had that in the minivan.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was one more, but
The one with the Mustang. So
besides that,
well,
anyway,
and going like we're having this conversation, and then going back to a college with the elevators and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say that my claustrophobia is severe, because I'm not afraid to get into a car. I don't feel claustrophobic in this closet, although we do have a window.
This is a very big closet. I mean, it's a room.
It is.
It's a room.
It is a small room.
Isn't this the size of Caleb's room back in the other house?
Yeah, which was actually a closet, but we made it into a room.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to when we talked about doing an episode on phobias, we just wanted to help people understand that phobias, there's a wide range, from it's an annoyance occasionally to it's debilitating.
Yes.
And there is support and help. So stay tuned, because we're going to get to that in a minute.
Right.
Let's transition into weird phobias.
Yeah.
So we looked up some weird phobias.
Oh,
Why don't you go
goodness.
first
Okay.
with yours?
All right. So it's funny. I was mentioning these at home with my daughters, and they were like, my daughter Emily, who has a podcast herself, and she's like, Mom, you have to learn how to pronounce these properly.
No, you don't.
Well, she felt that I had
It's
to.
more funny when you screw it up. Just saying, nobody cares for perfection.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to start with, so this one, Arithmophobia. Okay.
I think I have that.
The other one is Well, I should say
what
it's
is...
the same. It's the same one. It's
it's
just
the same
also called Numerophobia.
Okay.
So,
Fear numbers.
fear of numbers, and these can be not just a general fear of math itself, but some people have it to the extent of actually seeing with numbers, dealing with numbers,
Getting on the scale. Right? For sure. It's arithmophobia.
Yeah.
I'm not fat.
Yeah.
Okay.
But moreover, just people who have anxiety over having to deal with numbers, and it does come down to math, which is where the root of the word. So most phobias come from Latin or Greek origins, roots. So anyway, but I think that was another phobia that I had. I've outgrown it mostly, but I was to the point, I mean, I hated math so much because I struggled with it so much. So I wasn't planning on talking about this,
That's
but
okay.
it's why I picked
I'm sure
this
other
one.
people feel that way too.
Well, my daughter does.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so severe that I hated to keep score during, games, things like that. And I could do it now.
Yeah.
But just, and I had a job as a cashier at one point, and if the computer messed up, yes, I was one of those people like, oh no, I'm going to have to count back, like.
Oh, the change?
The change.
Yeah, forget about it. No.
And just frozen in fear. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then I had a job in accounts receivable, which I was talking to you about that. But anyway, I've outgrown that for the most part. But that's
good.
what that fear is.
All right.
Right.
What's the next one?
So the next one, okay, I'm going to say this. Hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
that
what
is a fear of long words.
That's so bizarre.
Why did they do that? Why do they call abbreviated? That's a long word for the actual abbreviation. Like when you abbreviate a word,
Yeah.
it's real tiny.
Right,
Why do
right,
they
right,
use a
right.
long word to describe that? I don't know.
Maybe
But
they're
anyway.
trying to expose you to your fear and help you get over it.
Perhaps. So that's and they think that is steeped in maybe as a child they had to read out loud.
Okay.
And when they came across words they couldn't read or pronounce, it developed into this fear.
Yeah.
So that's what that is.
I'm just remembering. I can't remember now what conversation I was in, but somebody used a big word. I think I was being interviewed for something, and I didn't understand what the word meant.
Mm-hmm.
And so they asked me a question that I didn't know, like, what the question was. And I couldn't Google it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh. You weren't in a position to Google it?
No.
Is that what
Right. So I had to just wing it. It was like driving down the road with your eyes closed. I was like, yes. I don't know. Whatever.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It was a big word. So I have that HIPAA whatever phobia.
You think so?
Not really.
No, I don't
because I
think
really
so.
don't care.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
All right. The next one is ergophobia.
Ergophobia.
Let
Let me guess. Ergo, like something that's ergonomically correct, like the fear of not having ergonomically correct things.
Well, you would think that, but no, it's
What
a
is
fear of work.
Oh, I have that.
We have that. I picked that one because I thought it could be funny.
The fear of work.
Yes.
Oh,
So
I
some
don't have
people. No, you don't.
No.
You are a hard worker.
Yes.
We joke because we don't really
don't
have
have jobs.
paying jobs at the
right,
moment.
Right, it's coming though.
But you are definitely a hard worker. I am too.
Yes. So this fear of work.
Yeah. So it could be a fear of even like people who just can't get it together. And really what it comes down to is they have a fear. Some people have a fear of actual labor. Some people, it's just a fear of success or failing.
Yeah.
You know, just
A lot of
associated
stress.
with work. Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
I know.
All right. What's the next one?
Okay. Oh. Okay. Pantherophobia.
Fear of pens. Fear of writing.
No.
Okay, what is it?
Fear of your mother-in-law.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it's a
Oh.
real thing. Thank God. I don't have that.
Me neither.
Yeah, I love my mother-in-law and I do not fear her at all. And so
Good.
that's what that is.
Okay.
Interesting.
Very.
Yeah. And the last one that I wrote down
Mm-hmm.
was Allodaxophobia. That is a fear of having an opinion and even or mentioning the opinion that you may have.
Oh.
And they think that's rooted in perhaps as a child, one was not allowed to give their opinion,
No.
or they gave an opinion and was criticized for it.
Yeah. Or
So-
embarrassed or something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
And I have a few to share myself. This comes from the 10 strange phobias you might not have known existed. I'm going to share 5 of them. The first one is called Panophobia. Yeah, and it's dealing with being, let's see, it says panophobia is real, and there are people who suffer from it daily. It can be difficult dealing with just one phobia, but imagine being afraid of everything. So they're basically afraid of everything.
Yeah, they got a panoramic
Yeah.
type fear
It's like,
of,
you name it, I'm afraid of it.
Yeah,
That's rough.
that's very rough.
Yeah. They often experience more than one type of phobia and remain in a constant state of fear
Gosh.
due to the belief of a persistent evil or something terrible is about to happen.
Oh.
It can deeply affect the sufferer's success in general day-to-day life.
Well, I could see where that would be debilitating
For sure.
for just living.
For sure. The next one on this list is Phobophobia.
A fear of fears.
Yeah, it's a fear of getting a phobia. So you don't have a phobia. You're not afraid of everything, so it's not like the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a fear of getting a phobia.
Mm.
That's a hard one to even wrap your brain around.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When we were discussing the taking medicine for the fear of flying, I was afraid to take the medicine in addition to
The flying.
the flying. Yeah, I was afraid of.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
All right, here's another one. Somnophobia.
What's that?
There are those who can't wait to jump in bed
Oh.
of a nighttime or lie down for a nap. Then there are those who are afraid to get that much needed rest.
Wow.
So they're afraid of sleep.
Oh my goodness. That'd be tough.
It would be. It says here that it's most common in children who, for instance, have had a bad dream.
Oh.
Or fear falling back asleep, in case if they experience another bad dream. So like a night terror or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we have Nomophobia.
I know what that is.
Yeah, it's a fear of being without your phone.
Yeah. Or your phone dying and it's not charged up.
Yeah, nowhere to charge it.
Yeah.
And I think that one most likely will just continue to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. And then we have the last one for me is Dinophobia. It says, does the thought of dining, engaging in dinner conversations, or having a conversation with someone while eating make you uneasy?
Not guilty.
Yeah, no.
I don't have that, but I understand. That,
yeah. And here's a sad little fact. It says, those who suffer from this are known to eat alone and in silence. And when they are eating with another person, they expect them to be silent.
Ooh.
So their fear is so overwhelming that they just can't have any, Yeah. Yeah. So these things are very real to the people who suffer from them.
Yeah.
So our heart goes out to all who experience these fears.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about therapy.
All right.
What do we do, Cathrine?
So how do you know when it's time to seek therapy? Well, we talked about those common phobias, and in most cases, like those common ones, you don't really need necessarily therapy unless it's debilitating and interfering with your day-to-day life.
Well, except for like you and I both sought professional help through our doctors and a prescription of Xanax, which is not therapy, but it did give us relief. So definitely, even if you're not experiencing the debilitating type of phobia, it's not as severe.
Mm-hmm.
If you do have that anxiety about XYZ, whatever it is, talk to your physician about it.
Definitely. Right. So, but he may not say you need to go to therapy is really what I'm getting at.
Right.
You just need a prescription because it's an occasional thing, unless you're flying every day and you have this fear.
Right.
If it's interfering with your day-to-day life, you probably need to seek therapy.
Yeah.
So the therapy would be used before medication because you really shouldn't take medication, unless it's a social disorder.
Yeah.
Then.
And when you say therapy, you mean psychotherapy.
Psychotherapy,
you would have to go to a
behavioral
psychiatrist
therapy
or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you talk to your primary physician, then he will or she will point you in the direction of what kind of help you need. Is it medication or is it therapy? And then point you hopefully in the right direction. If he or she doesn't, then you find somebody else that will. So so again, if you're avoiding certain activities or finding that the physical symptoms of fear are interfering, like I said, with your daily life, then you may want to consider therapy or at least a medication if you just have something, if it's just occasional, like what did I say in the beginning? Situational.
Yeah.
So if it's situational, you probably don't need therapy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then after that, like I said, your doctor will just discuss with you options and then go from there. But a really good source of more information on this that I found was very helpful was on mayoclinic.org/diseases, and we'll put it in the show notes. And then a conditions, specific phobias.
Yeah, and when I was looking at what do you do if you have a phobia? Oftentimes they do what they call exposure therapy. Yeah. So whatever it is that you're afraid of, they're gonna analyze you with what your tolerance level is for exposure to that thing. So in my case, with it being claustrophobia, I watched a woman who was being treated and her therapist, they had done some work together to kind of try to get to the bottom of it or whatever and the origins of it, but he had a pillowcase and he had her put the pillowcase over her head.
Oh, I'm afraid this is going to scare people more. But
Well, but he did it in a way where he put the person in control.
okay, that makes sense.
Like he didn't put a pillowcase over her head,
and then tie
it tight.
Right.
No.
I know. As soon as you said exposure therapy,
Yeah.
that could in itself rise up within yourself.
Yeah.
Because who wants to be exposed if you're afraid
Nobody.
of spiders and they're going to put a spider on your arm?
Right.
That's the thought of that is horrifying. But but they know what they're doing. Like you said, they probably put the person in control in every case.
Well,
So
I
they
didn't
I don't
see
know.
all that's out there on it, but I just saw that. And then the doctor or therapist or whatever, I don't know, maybe a doctor, psychiatrist, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They just kept on walking the person through, so now how do you feel? And now how do you feel? And then they would just increase, the adjutant, I don't know what to call it, the pillowcase.
Yeah.
So she's afraid of her
villain.
closed face. And I was also wanting to mention Howie Mandel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because Howie Mandel, as we know, he is a TV star and a comedian. And he's on that show. What's it
The
called?
Voice?
No, he's on. I don't know.
Oh,
maybe
America's Got Talent.
I don't know what he. Yes,
Yeah.
that one. And he's also on another one where they
Yeah.
pick numbers from Pretty Girls or whatever. Anyway,
That's right.
I forgot the
He
name
used
of
to
that.
host it.
Yeah, it's like a game show.
Yeah.
And my husband and I watched it. I can't remember the name of it. But
Yeah.
anyway, he has a fear and phobia of germs. So he's a germaphobe.
Yeah.
And I have often wondered about germaphobes now with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you had a phobia of germs and now you have a worldwide pandemic where the
No.
germs are out and about? Right?
Debilitating.
Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, I didn't know this, but in researching for today's episode, I watched a video of him being interviewed on a talk show. And he said that his initial original fear started when he was like 7 or 8 years old, very young boy. He had been outside and he was bit by some kind of a bug that laid its eggs in his skin.
Oh.
Yeah. And whatever this bug was, and I can't remember what he called it. There was a name for it. It laid its eggs in his skin, and it took 6 months
No.
of treatment to get the worms out or the little larvae or whatever it was. And he would have to go to the doctor, and they would have to scrape his skin until they could get to the bugs, and the bugs would work their way out.
Stop. Oh.
Okay. If that happened to you when you're like 7 years old,
Yeah.
do you think that you might develop some sort of a response to germs and such?
Yes. Or at least to bugs, which I sort of borderline have a thing.
And Howie, I love Howie Mandel. I loved him when he was on whatever that hospital show was called. I can't remember. It was in the 80s, I think.
Like a soap opera?
It wasn't a soap opera. It was like a nighttime show. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, he played like this doctor and he was quirky. I didn't know that he was a comedian back then. But I've always loved him. I've always loved his character, and I think he's hilarious. And I didn't know that was the beginning of his germaphobe situation. And then he said on top of that, he has OCD.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he displays that in America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so these conditions are real to the people and I give him all kinds of credit for, first of all, just exposing, the world, telling the world. I mean, he's famous.
His weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of giving a name and a face to a condition that many other people suffer from.
Yeah. Probably encourages them somewhat.
I would
like, here he
hope.
is.
Yeah, he's pushing through it. He's not just, he's in the limelight and he's with people all the time.
Yeah.
And anyway, all that to say, there's hope, there's help, there's support, and we're not alone.
That's right.
That's the one thing that we should all take away from this is that no matter what, if we're afraid of something, we're not alone in that.
Yeah.
And we can rely on other people, hopefully, right? Let's love each other out there,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah, and just remember that everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Everybody has a root,
Mhm.
and some kind of reason for certain behaviors, certain
Yeah.
fears. We had an episode on worry,
Yeah.
and now we're having this episode on phobias. And boy, we're learning a lot, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I guess my point was that people have their stories, they have issues, and
They do.
yeah.
They do indeed. Well, let's encourage ourselves and our listeners with a little bit of scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my favorite,
Yeah.
my all-time favorite. I want to get it on my phone here, so bear with me.
It's Isaiah 41:10
Yeah.
that she's looking up. I just thought I'd
Yeah, and it's
mention.
this little scripture, it just means a lot to me for many reasons, and it says this: "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And, you could go back in Isaiah and read what was going on there, with context of that verse. And I do feel like we can pull it out of context and apply it.
Yeah. That's why it's there.
Yeah.
That's
We're
why
not
it's
supposed
there.
to fear because God is with us no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're weak, He is strong and He is going to hold us up. We don't have to hold ourselves up.
Yep. And you can believe it. You can believe that promise.
Yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
And He's strong enough to help, to get through whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been an eye-opening episode for us. I hope it has been for our listeners as well.
Mm-hmm.
And here's our call to action. Yeah. Here's our favor that we're going to ask you for. We're going to ask you to subscribe.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We need subscribers.
And don't be afraid of the word subscribe. It's
Right.
painless.
Yeah, we're not going to haunt you or hound you for money or anything
It's not
like
going
that.
to cost anything either.
No, this
Mhm.
is obviously podcasts are free.
Mm-hmm.
And this podcast is free. And if they do subscribe or follow, whatever the word is
Yeah.
on wherever you get your podcasts, you'll get a notification once a week when we drop an episode. I had to think for a minute again. How do we
Yeah.
say it? Drop.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get a notification that a new episode is available to you. And we've been really trying to be careful and disciplined to drop an episode once a week.
Well.
And we're ahead.
Yeah.
So thankfully.
Yeah.
Because we had to actually stop and think a little bit more about this phobia one. We weren't quite ready last week,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we nailed it.
I hope
think
so.
it's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our ask.
Yeah.
Please subscribe.
And share.
Yes, and help us get the word out about this podcast.
Yes.
We would appreciate that.
Right.
Okay, the topic, Catherine, for our next episode.
Is it heritage?
It's heritage.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the importance of it,
Yeah.
or maybe not important.
Yeah, does it matter? Does it not?
Right.
And I described it earlier to Catherine as we were talking before we came on the air as heritage to me seems like it's the box of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Because if life is a big jigsaw puzzle, where you came from is sort of that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then it helps you to understand perhaps, why certain things go together the way they do in your life.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. So that's what
Right.
we're going to discuss
Mm-hmm.
next time. So join us then. You've been listening to the Life Happens Laugh Anyway podcast, and I'm still comedian Tracy DeGraff.
I'm still Catherine.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us.